Hello, Bald Brothers. I'm MonkyBeard. I'm on TikTok and YouTube and dealing with balding for about 14 years, but shaved my head around 3 years ago and haven't looked back since.
And hey everyone, BaldManCave here. Also dealt with balding about 10 years before finally embracing the bald lifestyle and shaving it all off. Uh, and we're excited to kind of start something a little bit new here where uh, throughout the week we get questions on our TikTok and YouTube accounts. And we want to take this opportunity to answer some of the questions that we get in a consolidated format. So Monkey Beard, you want to throw out the first question?
Yeah, sure. So I got one about minoxidil that was kind of interesting. So minoxidil, for those of you who don't know, is also the name brand is Rogaine. It's used for it's mostly a topical application for a medication, and it helps with regrowth of hair. But I got a comment, quite a few of them actually, about minoxidil side effects, and one of them being swelling. And yeah, someone is asking if the minoxidil swelling on the face goes away. Um, and I've been using minoxidil not for hair regrowth. I use it for the beard, and I actually do experience swelling, and it comes and goes. So that's just something that you should probably note about most of these medications is they have some side effects that you should probably be aware of, and you should probably do your research on. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any experience with medications?
I tried Rogaine for quite a while in the early stages when I first noticed I was losing my hair, because that was the go-to solution. You'd see TV commercials for it.
Hmm.
That Rogaine was kind of your first line of defense, and so I did try it. I got the foam
Yeah.
Rogaine, and what I didn't like about it was that I had my hair kind of short at the time, but I felt like it just made my hair look thinner because when it would go on, it was it would make your hair kind of wet, and then
Yeah.
it would be kind of hard to get it to lay the way that I wanted it to.
Sure.
So that was actually my biggest issue with that type of Rogaine. But I did try it for probably 6 months, but I did not find it personally very effective. And just the fact that it made my hair kind of it felt kind of like slimy
Hmm.
and kind of made it look more thin and wet. I wasn't a big fan of it when I
Did
used it.
did you experience any like the side effects? Like I experienced like heart palpitations when I used it. Like it's like you feel like you're running like a marathon and like your heart's pounding in your chest.
Personally, I don't remember feeling anything like that. I do remember having like some dry skin a little bit, but nothing too severe like that personally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got the dry, flaky skin, and to me, like if you're just planning on doing it for beard growth, that's kind of like the first step. It's like, oh, great, your skin's falling off, then that means
Yeah,
it's working.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know, is that skin flakiness, is that a long-lasting side effect, or is that just something that typically occurs in the beginning and then it fades away?
Yeah, great question. So, it usually happens for the first week or two, and then if you, I personally just use an exfoliator and like with like a facial scrub, and it just wipes it away. And I did that for about the first week or two, and then I noticed that like I missed this area when I was first applying for the beard. So when I started applying there, like I was like, oh shoot, I forgot this area. So I did, and then what I noticed is that it would flake first, and then the hair would grow in. So I think it's like just part of the cycle, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Finasteride or Propecia, which is the name brand, is attacking the DHT production, which causes your hair to fall out for male pattern baldness. It's stopping your testosterone from converting to DHT. And then minoxidil sends your hair follicles into a growth cycle. So for me at least, the Rogaine or minoxidil helped with growing a beard. And then finasteride, my hairline just kind of slowed its recession rather than, it was falling out pretty fast when I was in my teens. So,
Yeah. So a question that I got that I think is a pretty good question is just, are there any benefits to the bald lifestyle?
oh yeah. I love being bald. Like I, I literally kick myself every day that like I shave my head once a week, and I kick myself every day. It's like, why didn't I just do this sooner? It's like it's almost like a catharsis or like a meditative, like washing clean of the slate every
Yeah.
week. It's almost I don't know. I find it therapeutic. And then feeling like the baby skin. It's like, and then I used to, kind of like you were talking about with the minoxidil, and being that greasy feeling. Like I always got really insecure, like walking in the rain with my
Yeah.
hair. I had really like
Yeah.
big poofy hair, and like
Yeah.
anything that would mess it up, it was like,
Yeah.
ah. Now that's gone. Like I walk in the rain, no problem. No umbrella, no whatever. I'm just
I remember the first time it was raining after shaving my head. I was so excited.
yeah.
I was like, yes, I get to go outside and I don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it. Because that was, I always say my two biggest enemies were the wind and the rain.
Yep. Yep.
Because I would get my hair like just in the right,
Yeah.
the right way, because it was so thin that like I had to spend so much time on it trying to get it to sit in just the right way.
Mhm.
And then yeah, if it was raining, yeah, that immediately ruined it. Or if it was windy and it would like, you know, blow my, because I kind of did a little bit of a comb over for a little while, and so the wind would just, immediately ruin that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I I think it came to head for me like where I started thinking that I needed to make a change. Did you ever watch American Hustle?
No,
Oh,
no.
so in American Hustle, Christian Bale plays this really sleazy con man, right?
I remember the character. Yeah. Yeah.
And he has like in the very intro scene is like he wears like this really elaborate like comb over with
Yeah.
where he has to wear a toupee piece like right here, and he does
Hmm.
this comb over thing, and like it barely looks like it's hanging on there. And then
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper's character comes over and like just rubs his head, and you just see the rage just building on his face. I felt like that, man, that's gonna be me pretty soon. I gotta do something about this. So
Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, it's obviously, in a movie, but I think there's some reality to that,
yeah,
that we've all felt that, if you have thinning hair
yeah,
and anything comes into contact with it that might ruin it, you definitely get that feeling of, oh no, that, my day is ruined now, or
yeah.
I got to go check the mirror and try to fix this now. And I would just say, benefits to the bald lifestyle. There are so many, and I think the only reason that a lot of people resist just kind of embracing it
Hmm.
is because it is hard to envision your life sometimes just not having hair, because
Yeah, for real.
you grew up with it, you always had it, and just envisioning that it's completely gone is really tough to do, I think.
Yeah,
But once you take that step, you immediately recognize the benefits.
sure.
And there's those more superficial ones like we were talking about where no bad hair days, right?
Mm,
But there's just something about embracing that bald lifestyle.
for
It
real.
just kind of gives you a sense of I felt more confidence after shaving my head
Same.
than any time before. Just
Yeah.
having that anxiety, worrying about my hair all the time, how it looked, and then moving on from that, uh, yeah, it was just like a weight off my chest. So that was the biggest game changer for me, uh, when I shaved my head.
So flip side, like, is there any negatives you see? Like, let's play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think just the only negatives that are coming to mind right now is really just based on how society kind of views, you know, call it beauty standards or just aesthetic standards. Um, I've talked about this before, but if you look at movies and TV shows, the
Mhm.
main character usually has, full head of hair, really good
Yeah.
hair. You rarely see, balding or bald main characters. It does come up sometimes, but that just sort of shows how much of a standard it is to have more of a full
Yeah.
head of hair. So if you're bald, it could be more perceived as, not living up to society's standards of what is more aesthetically pleasing. But
Mhm.
again, I think that's mostly a perception.
Yeah.
But it certainly is possible that some people might not find, the bald look attractive.
Sure.
On the flip side of that, there are a lot that do.
Mhm.
So, you really can't say that's a negative one way or the other.
Yeah.
How about you?
I,
Any negatives come to mind for you?
well, for me, it's like you can see I have to blur my background as a disaster behind me, but like sometimes it, because it doesn't know where my head ends and stops, it, cuts off my ear. But other than that, I think it was just that. It's just like you don't. For me, I was like, I've always been a pretty boy, so it's like I would always be like, if I don't have my hair, I can't have my, anime look of being
Yeah.
like this, heartthrob person. And
Hmm.
then I like my brother-in-law told me it's like, well, it wasn't like you were pooling like women anyway, like with with your hair. So it's not
Right.
like it's gonna change, I think there's one
Yeah.
comment that I got which was like, you shave your head and you went from average to a sub 5. And I was like, I have to disagree with that because I think it's just how you wear it, right? It's just like clothes or anything. If you just embrace, being confident in what you have.
Yeah.
And I find it always so strange, like you have this idea that you have growth spurts, and you grow up or you start growing facial hair, you become more ripped, you become fatter, anything. And those things seem to be less detrimental than hair. And
Yeah.
if we just start thinking about it as that you're just evolving just like anything else in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's somebody who said that going bald or embracing baldness, shaving your head is like achieving your final form.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, it can, the key is for me when I shaved my head, it was like this is one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
Now I can focus on other things that I can control, focus on my health, getting in shape,
Hmm.
focus on other things that are important to me, family, friends,
Yeah.
work. And so not having that one aspect hanging over you is pretty liberating, I think.
Did you ever feel like, kind of on that note, did you ever feel like your hair loss affected your relationships or your hobbies or, doing things that you actually enjoy?
I think it did. I think it was limiting just because my confidence was so low.
Hmm.
Um, and I would be really insecure just, if I was out in public and I noticed somebody like glancing at my hairline or if somebody was standing behind me, I'd be like, oh, they could see that bald patch on the back of
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
It was just something that was always on my mind. It
Yeah.
was really, really a constant throughout the day. So I definitely think it held me back while I was going through it.
Yeah. I
How
definitely
about
relate
you?
with that. So long story short, I shaved my head and then I grew it back for a period
Hmm.
of like 3 months, and then essentially I had my old hair back. Um, like ironically, it didn't recede any further after I shaved my head and stopped taking finasteride than when I was taking it. So I kind of like got a snapshot of what I used to be, and I actually like started feeling that fussiness, that insecurity come back, even though like my greatest fear of being bald had already been faced, and like my hairline hadn't really moved at all, but I
Yeah.
still felt like that people are watching me, people are noticing that I'm balding or my forehead is enormous or whatever. And then when I shaved it again, I was like all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
So I know you lost your hair even a little bit earlier than me, I think
Hmm.
around age 17.
Yeah, that's right.
So what was your relationship like with your hair before that? And then I'm kind of curious how you ended up getting on medication. Was
Yeah.
that doctor prescribed or
Mhm.
was that your own research?
No, that's a great question. So, before that, I've always been like my whole family is known as like the people with the hair, right? My dad and mom both have like this big floofy 80s hairstyles. My dad had thinning hair for as long as I've known him, but I saw pictures before and he had, the kind of looked like Bruce Lee,
Yeah.
Um, and it was always pushed upon like me, especially as an Asian immigrant family, like, you have to fit in, you have to assimilate, and you have like your looks really matter because they were both in sales. They just thought that your first impressions make a difference. And I was 17, and no one else in high school, at least not to my knowledge, was experiencing any type of hair thing. And in PE class, like, ew, look, your hairline's receding. It's like, no, it's not. It's like well, technically, I've always had like kind of like the Vegeta hairline,
Yeah.
But then one time, this like kid was saying how soft his hair was, and I was like, well, I think my hair's pretty soft too. And it's like, no, your hair's thin. You can see right to your scalp. I'm like, oh.
Oh,
And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh shoot, you can. And I looked at everyone else's like density of their hairline, and I was like, nope, that's just me then. It's like that sucks. It's like
yeah.
I already felt like I was other. I was like a very small minority of, the ethnic group in my high school. And then to be the balding one at the same time, it's like I just felt like so other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I cried like many many nights, and I was like, I asked my parents like, is there something we can do? And it's like, well, you can always do like Rogaine. It's like, but Rogaine's for like middle-aged men. Like, why why would I do that? So they're like, well, there might be other things. Why don't you go look into it? So I looked it up, and there was like Propecia had come out, maybe like 10 years prior to that. And then I went to a dermatologist to see, like, it's embarrassing, but I used to like collect the hairs on my pillow and I put them in a Ziploc bag. It's like, look, and went to the dermatologist, like, this is how much hair I'm losing. Is this like, please don't tell me this is like male pattern baldness. Like, tell me that like it's some like scalp fungus that's like eating my hair or something,
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah,
Right?
anything else. And then she said, no, I'm sorry. That looks like standard hair thinning.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're in a Norwood 3. And so she's like, well, I can prescribe you Propecia. It's a pill you have to take every day. And she told me the side effects at the time, but I was like, anything, just give me the medicine,
Right.
And I don't even remember what she told me the side effects were. It's probably what I experienced, but then I took it, and I just took it like that. And it was expensive at the time. It was like $50 a month. So yeah, it was really expensive. It was like over $1 a pill.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think the costs have come down nowadays, but
at the time,
still, it is a a treatment, to your
Yeah.
point. Right? You have to take it
yeah.
every day as long as you want to keep your hair.
Yeah, and even like 4 years into it, I started that thing was eating at the back of my head. It was just like, this is something you have to take for the rest of your life, and it's expensive. It's you have to remember, because I don't know if this is the nocebo effect or whatever, but like I felt like the moment, like if I forgot a day, and I only forgot like maybe 20 days over the like 11 years, like the next day my hair would like start thinning again, and then I would take a pill, and then it would like thin and slow down thinning, and then it would go back to it was, and it just felt like such like the clearance was just so small, of what I felt I could allow. And then I don't know, maybe it was all my fears, because when I stopped taking it, then my hairlines, receded a little bit, but not much considering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just real quickly backtracking a little bit, because I had such a similar experience to you when like really when reality set in, that like, oh no, I'm going bald.
Yeah.
It was when somebody else called it out.
Yeah.
Like, I think I knew subconsciously it was happening, but I remember being on a like FaceTime with a girl I'd been kind of talking to at the time.
Yeah.
And I kind of put my phone up, I guess, or put my head down a little bit, and she went, "Oh my God, are you balding?"
Oh man.
And I was just like, oh. Like at that point I was like, okay, somebody else recognized it, they've called it out, it must be real.
Yeah.
And that can be a very tough moment, when all of a sudden you do realize, especially at an early age, and you were even younger than I was. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine how difficult that was. But having that reality set in of, oh man, this is happening.
Hmm.
It's tough to come to grips with. So I
Yeah.
sympathize with anyone, going through it right now. I know that's the tough part,
Yeah.
probably the toughest part
Hmm.
of this whole journey. But I'm curious, when you're on the medication, I know
Yeah.
you've talked about some of the side effects.
Hmm.
Um, did those set in immediately for you, or
Sure.
did those happen, later on in the process?
For me, it took about a year before I started experiencing it. I took it for throughout the rest of high school, and then I went to college. And then first year of college was okay, but I could start to feel like my motivations to go out and be out there just seemed to start to dwindle. And to be fair, I don't know if it was that the idea that I had to take a medication was making me sad, but I remember that when I got to my sophomore year, I was like 19 at the time. Um, it became like the depression became like crippling. Like I remember just locking myself in my room for a day or two at a time and just sit in the dark. I go to class and then come back and then I would just sit in the dark. Sometimes I wouldn't watch anything or I'd just have like I'd binge a show in the background.
Yeah.
But and then it would just do that for a decade, and it wasn't until I rolled off of it that 6 months later it's like what I was living in a cave for like a long time, and I experienced some extremely traumatic stuff afterwards, but like I don't think I could have handled it had I still been on the medication. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
And did you immediately shave your head after getting off the medication, or?
Shortly thereafter, so um I had like only like I was told myself I'd just take as many pills as I had left, and then I had like 4 pills left in my prescription, and I was like, I think I'm gonna be done. It was like it was August, the middle of August, and I remember the feeling. I was like, I'm gonna stop taking him, and I'm just gonna cross my fingers because I hope that I can keep my hairline. All the paper the studies show that the moment you stop taking it, all the hair that you had essentially held on to would just start falling out in droves.
Right.
And my dad's friend, he was on Finasteride for a long time too, and he said the moment he stopped taking it, his hair came off like a chia pet.
Wow. Wow.
Like it just in the showers. So I was like, oh my God, that sounds awful. That sounds like awful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was ready for that. And then, months went by and I got married a couple months later in October. And I took the photos of, I took the photos of, what I was going to look like with hair so that I could show my kids. And then
Mhm.
like literally after I got married that night, I just said, all right, let's shave it off. So, but yeah,
I love it. New chapter,
yeah, exactly.
going forward with your married life and your bald life. So
Yeah.
well, so one that I got recently was somebody who was getting their hair cut, and their barber mentioned to them, you need to go to Turkey, you need to get a hair transplant, something
Oh yeah.
to that effect.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is obviously the hair transplants are very common, and I think if that's the right step for you, I'm all for it. I really think that just embracing the bald look is the best thing for my mental health and
Same.
help me move past this struggle and anxiety. But for those who choose to get a hair transplant, I think that that's perfectly fine. For me, I think the key is just confidence. It's whatever you choose to do,
Yeah.
do it confidently. Because for me, when I went through the hair transplant, process. It was all about, I just want to hide this. Like, I just want to pretend like, nothing really happened. I just, got my hair back, and I thought it would be a very subtle process.
Yeah.
But it's pretty noticeable,
Mm.
especially in the early stages after you go through the procedure. But I think if you're open about it and you're sharing it with your friends and family, and that way you can still kind of be yourself and just say, yep, I'm going through this process because I just want my hair back. But the key is just to, whatever you're going to do it confidently. But I was curious, just on the topic of hair transplants, if that's something you had ever considered doing.
Yeah, so my uncle got a hair transplant, and unfortunately, he said the pain was like really bad. I think he did the FUT, the patch. Yeah. And he was supposed to go in for like 3 sessions, and he only did the first one, and then and I remember just thinking that it didn't look very natural to begin with. Not only that, it didn't look complete because he didn't do all the 3 sessions. And then I remember at the time it was like $20,000 to $30,000 to do the transplant, and I kind of saw some of the pictures of the recovery. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm gonna be able to hide that,
Do you know how long ago this was?
This is like when I first started, so like 10 plus years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I know things have improved over the years. I did the FUT as well, or what's commonly referred to as the strip method, where basically they take a strip of skin from the back of your head and then take the hair follicles. The upside to that is they can usually get more hair in one session. But the downside, because I do have a linear scar on the back of my head now, that's the major downside. And of course, I think with any hair transplant, you're gonna see that, and there's usually swelling involved. There is some scarring even if you do the FUE procedure, and then you'll certainly see the area in which they moved the hair, especially in the early stages. So it's very difficult to hide unless you're able to wear a hat for whatever you're doing throughout the day. So,
and I remember at the time, like, what kind of turned me off from it is that and I think what people don't realize, that you still have to take like finasteride or minoxidil to kind of upkeep all the hair that isn't transplanted, because that's still susceptible to DHT. And so then at the time I was like, well, my hairline's not super bad, and it seems like the medication's working. It's like that's almost just like doing another step to have the similar outcome. And then later on in the process, I was like, when I was kind of getting sick and tired of taking the meds, I started thinking like, well, if I get a hair transplant, I'm just having to go back to doing all that over again. So I was like, you know what, just embrace being bald. And similar to your story, it's like my wife actually likes me bald more than having hair. All her idols and celebrity crushes at the time was like, Vin Diesel, Jason Statham. I'm like, all right, there we go. But I really hope that this type of podcast can help other people start to embrace the look. And I'm sure we should, if anyone who's watching this wants to chat with us, we'd be more than happy to invite you. This is kind of like an open forum. I think the big thing is just breaking the stigma of being bald. And it's ironic because like in the 50s and 60s, being bald was actually just a haircut. People would cut their hair to have the horseshoe look and have like a length on the sides, even though they were bald on top. And then Socrates, like it was a look for a long time. But
no, absolutely, it's all about societal trends, and at this point in time, it's less acceptable than maybe it was in the past. But really, if you think about, if you're stranded on a desert island by yourself, would you care if you had hair? Probably not. Because the only reason we care about it is because of how we think we're perceived by others. And absolutely, I think if we can break down that stigma, that's certainly, I think, a goal for both of us. and just leaning into it, accepting it, and just how freeing that is. It can be difficult to see why you're going through it, because it, like I said before, it is hard to see yourself on the other side of it. But once you do, it really is kind of a, I think you said, a cathartic experience.
Yeah, it is.
And very, very much freeing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the time, BaldManCave, and talk again on next Friday. But yeah, anyone who's watching this, if you want to, feel free to add any questions in the comments below. We'll make sure to add those to the next podcast. So thank you everyone for your time, and hope to see you on the next one.